The police told me my van never left the lay-by that night. That was their official statement. I sat in the sterile, fluorescent-lit interview room at Inverness Police Station, watching D.I. Mackay tap his pen against a manila folder. He looked at me not with suspicion, but with a kind of exhausted pity. It's the look you give someone whose mind has finally snapped under the pressure of the job. He slid a printed GPS log across the table. "Your vehicle's telematics," he said, his voice flat, echoing slightly off the cinderblock walls. No movement, no signal logs, no toll records. The engine was idling for exactly 4 hours and 12 minutes. You never left the hard shoulder of the A835. I stared at the paper. I stared at the neat, unbroken green line showing my van parked in a desolate, muddy lay-by. But I knew what I had driven. I knew the miles I had put on the engine. Because when they finally let me go, when they finally let me back out to the impound lot to look at my white Ford Transit, the odometer told a different story. It showed 186 miles. 186 miles driven in a single night, on a route that, according to the police, I never left. I still don't know where those miles came from. I don't know where I actually went. But to explain that, to explain why I can never drive at night again, why I sold the van and took a desk job in the city, I need to tell you about the Hitchhiker. I work nights as an independent courier in the Scottish Highlands. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the mortgage. I transport medical supplies, urgent surgical parts, specialized equipment, things that can't wait until morning, things that can't be trusted to the regular postal routes. That night, my cargo was a set of temperature-controlled coolant valves for an MRI machine at a remote clinic near Ullapool. If they didn't arrive by dawn, a dozen scheduled scans would be canceled. It's quiet work, predictable work. You get to know the roads. You know which bends are too sharp in the ice. You know where the red deer like to cross. You know the exact rhythm of your own headlights sweeping across the dark. You learn the smell of your own cab, a mix of stale coffee, damp wool, and the faint antiseptic tang of the medical boxes in the back. Most nights blur together. It's just you, the hum of the diesel engine, the rhythmic thwack of the wipers, and the endless ribbon of tarmac. This one didn't blur. This one carved itself into my brain. It started just after 11:30 p.m. I was west of Inverness, taking a single carriageway that winds through the hills. There had been a minor landslide on the main A road, so the sat-nav had routed me down these narrower, older roads. It was a wet stretch. Not just raining, but that heavy, driving Highland rain that turns the air into a fine, blinding mist. The kind of rain that doesn't fall so much as it attacks. No streetlights, no houses, just the road, the rain, and the occasional flash of a reflector post whipping by in the dark. I was doing 40, the speed limit, and all you could safely manage in that downpour. The wipers were on their fastest setting, slapping back and forth in a hypnotic, heavy rhythm. Thwack hiss, thwack hiss. That's when I saw him. A man standing on the verge. He was just at the edge of my headlight's reach, a dark silhouette against the black trees. Wearing a heavy, dark, waterproof jacket, hands shoved deep in his pockets. His head was slightly down, shoulders hunched against the rain, like he'd been waiting out there for hours. I slowed without thinking. My foot hovered over the brake, not to stop. You don't stop for hitchhikers on unlit Highland roads at midnight. You just react. It's instinct. You don't expect a human shape in a place that belongs entirely to the dark. As my van drew level with him, He looked up. He didn't wave. He didn't step out. He didn't gesture for a lift. He just made eye contact. I only saw him for a second, but it was enough to make my stomach drop. His face was pale, slick with rain, but it was his eyes that caught me. They weren't pleading. They weren't desperate for a warm car. They were just tired. A deep, hollow, bone-weary exhaustion. The kind of look you get when you've been walking for a very, very long time. When you've been walking so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to stop. Then he was gone, swallowed by the rear-view mirror and the rain. I exhaled, shaking my head. I turned the heater up a notch, rubbed my eyes, and drove on. Just a local. Just someone who'd had a breakdown a few miles back and was walking to the nearest phone box. Perfectly normal. 10 minutes later, I saw him again. The rain hadn't let up. The road hadn't changed. It was still just empty tarmac and dripping gorse bushes. But there he was. Same man. Same dark, waterproof jacket. Same posture. He was standing on the exact same stretch of verge, about 20 feet from the white line. My foot slammed the brake. The van fishtailed slightly on the wet road, the tires crying out against the asphalt before catching. My heart gave a hard, painful thump against my ribs. I looked in the rearview mirror, empty road behind me, just the red glow of my taillights bleeding into the mist. I looked forward. He was already watching me pass. This was impossible. I'd done the math in my head. At 40 miles an hour, 10 minutes meant I had traveled nearly 7 miles. There were no junctions behind me, no side roads, no turnoffs, no laybys, just a continuous, unbroken stretch of single-track road bordered by dense, impassable forestry. There was no physical way he could have beaten me here. No car could have passed me and dropped him off. As my headlights washed over him, he raised one hand. It wasn't a hitchhiker's thumb. It wasn't a wave. His palm was flat, facing me, fingers pressed tightly together. A warning. A cold prickle of adrenaline washed down the back of my neck, making the hair stand up. I didn't slow down this time. I pressed the accelerator, the engine revving hard, putting distance between us as fast as the wet tires would allow. I told myself I was tired. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a reflection in the wet tarmac, a trick of the exhausted mind. When you stare at the dark for too long, your brain starts projecting patterns onto it. Pareidolia, that's what it's called. I reached for the radio dial, needing a voice, needing music, needing anything to break the heavy silence of the cab. I turned it on, static. I scanned the frequencies. FM, AM, DAB, nothing. Just a low, rhythmic hissing. It almost sounded like breathing, like something large, inhaling and exhaling right next to the microphone. I turned it off. Then the sat-nav spoke. The screen, which had been dark for the last hour, suddenly flared to life. The blue route line redrawn itself, snapping to a new path. The robotic, synthetic voice filled the small cab, loud and jarring. Continue for 7 miles. I stared at the screen. Exactly 7. 7 miles. The exact distance I had driven since the first time I saw him. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The leather was slick with the sweat from my palms. Just drive, I whispered to myself, my voice sounding thin and fragile in the cab. Just keep driving. 7 miles. At 40 miles an hour, That's just over 10 minutes. 10 minutes of staring at the yellow lines flashing beneath my headlights. 10 minutes of listening to the tires hiss on the wet asphalt. 10 minutes of waiting. My eyes darted to the mirrors every few seconds. Left, right, center. Nothing but rain and darkness. At 8 minutes, the air in the cab felt suddenly freezing. The heater was blasting, the vents pushing hot air directly onto my hands, but I could see my own breath pluming in the dim light of the dashboard. A pale, ghostly fog with every exhale. At 9 minutes, the smell changed. The usual smell of stale coffee and damp wool was gone, replaced by the smell of wet earth, of ozone, of something old, metallic, and coppery, like blood on a rusty nail. At 10 minutes, the headlights caught him. He was closer this time, not on the verge. He was standing right on the white line. I slammed the brakes again, the ABS pumping violently, the van shuddering as it slowed. He was right there. His jacket was different now. The left sleeve was torn, hanging in ragged, muddy strips. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving beneath the dark fabric. His face was twisted in an expression of sheer, unadulterated panic. But he wasn't just standing there. As I slowed, I realized he was jogging. He was keeping pace with the van, his legs pumping, his boots splashing in the puddles. He was running at 40 miles an hour, and he looked like he was sprinting for his life. As the van crawled past him, he turned his head. He didn't look at me. He looked through me. And I swear, as his face passed my window, his lips moved. He mouthed 2 words. "Turn around." I didn't brake. I didn't stop. I put my foot down and fled. The engine roared, the speedometer climbing past 50, then 60. The road was too narrow, too wet for this speed, the van swaying dangerously in the crosswinds. But I didn't care. I just needed to put miles between me and that face. A quarter mile down the road, I saw a lay-by. A narrow gravel pull-off bordered by dense, dripping pine trees. I yanked the steering wheel, the van skidding onto the loose stones, tires crunching loudly, and killed the engine. Silence rushed in. Heavy, ringing silence, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and the drumming of the rain on the metal roof. I sat there, chest heaving, hands shaking so badly I had to press them against my thighs. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Crunch. 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 Gravel, right behind the van. Someone was walking toward the back doors. Slow, deliberate. I held my breath. I slowly reached for the heavy metal maglite I kept in the passenger footwell. My fingers wrapped around the cold, knurled rubber grip. I turned in my seat, looking through the wire mesh partition into the dark cargo area. Nothing. Just the pale blue glow of the temperature gauges on the medical boxes. I looked out the side window. Nothing. Just the black trunks of the pine trees. The footsteps stopped. But they didn't fade away. They didn't trail off into the distance. They stopped abruptly, instantly, like a tape recording being paused mid-step. The absolute suddenness of it made my ears ring. That was the moment I stopped pretending this was normal. My brain, desperate for logic, forced my eyes to the dashboard. The fuel gauge. When I left Inverness, it was at half a tank. Now, the needle was hovering just above the red line. 42 miles of range left. I hadn't been driving that long. I hadn't been idling. I looked at the trip meter. It read 186.2 miles. I had been driving for 2 hours. I hadn't driven 180 miles. It was physically impossible. The spatial distortion was setting in. The road wasn't just looping, it was stretching. And then, through the rain-streaked windshield, the headlights caught the reflective paint of a sign. A standard, reflective green highway sign. But the name on it was wrong. Breilach. 2 miles. I had driven the highlands for 6 years. I knew every village, every hamlet, every cluster of 3 houses with a post office. I had a mental map of every single turnoff from Inverness to the coast. I had never heard of Breilach. I put the van in gear and pulled back onto the road. The speedometer felt sluggish. The engine sounded muted, like it was running underwater. The usual diesel rumble replaced by a dull, muffled thrum. 2 miles passed in silence. Then the trees broke. The village of Breilach appeared out of the mist. It looked normal. Too normal. That was the problem. It was like a film set, or a diorama built by someone who had only read about villages in books. There was a row of stone cottages with slate roofs, a small row of shops, a church spire rising into the fog. Streetlights glowed with a warm sodium orange hue. Lights were on in the windows. I could see the silhouette of a man sitting in an armchair in one of the front rooms, a lamp burning brightly beside him. The door to the local shop was propped open, a warm yellow light spilling onto the wet pavement. But there was no movement, no cars parked outside, no smoke from the chimneys despite the biting cold. The man in the armchair wasn't turning a page of his book. He wasn't shifting his weight. He was just sitting, frozen, like a photograph. I rolled to a stop in the center of the village. I pulled out my mobile. No signal, not even the faint, flickering edge of a network. I grabbed the two-way radio. "Base, this is Courier 4. Do you copy?" Static. "Base, come in. I'm at a place called Breilach, west of Inverness. Do you copy?" A burst of static. Then a voice. It was Sarah, my dispatcher. Her voice was tinny, distant, buried under layers of interference, but unmistakable. "Courier 4, what's your location? You're not showing on the GPS." "I'm in a village," I said, my voice trembling. "Breilach, 2 miles off the A835. There was a long pause on the radio, just the hiss of the connection. "Courier 4, there is no Breilach on any route. There's no Breilach on the map." "Sarah, I'm looking at it. I'm sitting in it." "Listen to me," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh, urgent whisper. "Check your telematics. You haven't moved in 2 hours. You're still in the lay-by. You never left the lay-by." "Sarah, that's not—" "Turn the van around," she interrupted. "Don't get out, just turn around." The radio went dead. I sat there, the silence of the cab pressing in on me. I looked at the shop, the warm light, the open door. I needed to know. I needed a human face that wasn't frozen in a window. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I grabbed my flashlight, pushed open the cab door, and stepped out into the rain. But as my boot hit the pavement, I realized something was wrong. The air in Breilach was wrong. It didn't smell like rain. It smelled like dust, like old paper and dried lavender. And and it was completely dry. The rain was falling all around me. I could see it hitting the roof of the van, hearing it drumming on the metal. But it wasn't hitting me. It was stopping an inch above the pavement, suspended in midair. A curtain of frozen water droplets. I walked past the van, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the quiet street. I approached the first cottage, the one with the man in the armchair. I stepped up to the window and peered through the glass. The man was sitting there, a book open on his lap. But as I watched, his eyes moved. They didn't turn to look at me. They just darted frantically back and forth in his head, wide with a silent, screaming terror. He was trapped inside his own frozen body. I backed away, my breath catching in my throat. I looked down the street. In the next window, a woman was standing at the sink. Her eyes were darting too. In the house across the road, a child was frozen mid-step on the stairs. Its eyes were rolling wildly. They were all awake. They were all trapped. I turned and walked quickly into the shop. A little brass bell chimed above the door. The shop was stocked with canned goods, newspapers, and sweets, but everything was covered in a fine layer of gray dust. The dates on the newspapers were blank. The cans had no labels. Behind the counter stood a woman. She was older, her hair pulled back in a tight gray bun. She was wiping the counter with a dry cloth. She didn't look up when I entered. "Help you?" she asked. Her voice was flat, monotone, like a recording. I need to use a phone," I said, taking a step back toward the door. "My mobile's dead. My radio's dead." She stopped wiping the counter. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes were completely black, not just dark brown. The iris and the pupil were merged into a single, solid pool of obsidian. She didn't blink. "You've seen him," she said. It wasn't a question. "Seen who?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The man on the road," she said. She reached under the counter and pulled out a large, rolled-up piece of parchment. She unrolled it and laid it flat on the glass countertop. It was a map, hand-drawn. The ink was faded, brown with age. It showed the road I had been driving, but it was wrong. The loops were too tight. The distances were marked in strange, jagged lines that spiraled inward. She tapped a long, bony finger on the map. "Rule 1, she said, "do not stop." She tapped another line. "Rule 2, do not follow him." She tapped a third. "Rule 3, keep driving." I looked closer at the map. Beneath the rules, there were names, dozens of them, written in different handwritings, different inks, some in ballpoint, some in fountain pen, some just scratched into the paper with a desperate, heavy hand. Some were crossed out with a single, heavy line of red ink. David Miller, John Ross, Ewan McLeod, Sarah Jenkins. "Who are these people?" I whispered. "Drivers," she said. "Couriers, travelers, people who stopped, people who followed." She looked up at me, her black eyes reflecting the dim light of the shop. "They never came back." I didn't ask any more questions. I turned and ran out of the shop. The bell chimed frantically behind me. I sprinted back to the van, my boots splashing through the suspended, unnatural rain. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the door locked. I sat there, gasping for air, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked out the windshield. The hitchhiker was there. He wasn't on the road this time. He was sitting on the wooden bench at the bus stop, about 50 yards ahead. He wasn't watching me. He was looking past me. He was staring at the empty road behind my van. His head was shaking, slowly at first, then violently. No, no, no. For the first time since I'd seen him, he didn't look tired. He didn't look resigned. He looked terrified. He was afraid of what was behind me. I adjusted the rear-view mirror. At first, I just saw the orange glow of the streetlights. Then, I saw the headlights. They were about a quarter-mile back, coming around the bend. But there was no car. There were no fenders, no grill, no windshield, just lights. Two perfect, blindingly white circles of light, hovering about 4 feet off the ground. They were perfectly level, not bouncing with the suspension of a vehicle, not shifting, just gliding forward, smooth and silent. There was no engine sound, no hum of tires, and they cast no reflection. The wet road beneath them was pitch black. The light didn't illuminate the tarmac, it just seemed to erase it. Where the light touched, the road simply ceased to exist. They were getting closer, fast. I slammed the van into gear and floored it. The tires spun on the wet stones, then caught. The van surged forward. The hitchhiker was standing in the middle of the road now. He had blood on his torn sleeve, dark, wet blood dripping onto the tarmac. He didn't move out of my way. He just stood there, staring at the windshield. I braced for impact. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the impact never came. I opened my eyes. He was standing right beside my door, his hand resting on the glass, keeping pace with the van as it accelerated. I slowed the van to a crawl, rolling to a stop beside him. I rolled down the window an inch. The smell of ozone and copper flooded the cab, so strong I could taste it on my tongue. "Get in," I hissed. "Get in the van." He looked at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "You don't understand," he said. His voice was raspy, like he hadn't used it in years, like dry leaves scraping across pavement. "Understand what? Get in. It's right behind us." He shook his head. "You're not being followed," he said softly. He pointed a trembling, bloodied finger at the hovering lights in the mirror. "You're being replaced." The headlights didn't chase. They didn't need to. They just erased distance. Every time I blinked, they were closer. Every time I looked in the mirror, the light was brighter, eating away the darkness, eating away the road. And as they got closer, the world behind me started to fall apart. I looked in the side mirror. The village of Breilach was gone. The streetlights, the shop, the frozen people in the windows, just wiped out, replaced by a wall of absolute, featureless gray. The road markings beneath my tires were disappearing. The white lines faded, then the yellow center line, until I was just driving on a ribbon of black asphalt suspended in a void. Signposts we passed were blank. The text was sliding off the metal, dripping away like wet paint into the darkness. And then the erosion reached inside the cab. It started small. I tried to remember the name of my dispatcher. Sarah. Was it Sarah? Or was it Susan? I couldn't picture her face. Panic flared in my chest. I tried to think of my husband, Mark. I tried to picture his smile, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. Nothing. It was just gray static. A blank space in my mind where my life used to be. I tried to remember my own name. I knew it started with a D. David? Daniel? The syllable was slipping away, dissolving like sugar in hot water. The identity erosion was setting in. The road was scrubbing me clean, erasing my history, preparing the canvas for the new driver. The thing in the headlights wasn't just chasing me. It was coming to take my place. It was coming to drive my van, deliver my cargo, live my life. The hitchhiker was still running alongside the van. He wasn't out of breath anymore. He was keeping perfect pace with the vehicle, his bloody hand still resting on the glass. "Listen to me," he shouted over the roar of the engine and the rushing wind. "There's a rule. You have to remember the rule." "What rule?" I yelled back, swerving to avoid a patch of road that was simply missing, dropping off into a bottomless, starless void. "The stone bridge," he screamed. "When you reach the stone bridge, don't cross it." "Why? Why not?" "Because once you do..." He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a terrible, ancient sorrow. "Once you cross it, you become the one standing at the roadside." He let go of the window. He was slowing down. "No! Keep running!" I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "Don't stop!" "I've been running for 6 years," he said. His voice was calm now, resigned. The exhaustion was back, heavier than before. "I'm tired, mate. I'm so tired." The headlights in the mirror flared. They were right on my bumper. The light was so bright it was bleeding through the metal of the van, casting harsh, shadowless, clinical illumination inside the cab. It felt like an operating theater. "They've found us," the hitchhiker said. He stopped running. He just stood in the middle of the fading road, turning to face the light. He didn't run. He didn't try to escape. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, hands shoved deep in his pockets, waiting for the light to wash over him. Like he'd done it before. Like he knew exactly how this ended. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I drove. The road stretched ahead. No more villages. No more signposts. No more signal. Just rain. Heavy, driving rain, washing away the edges of the world. The headlights in the mirror were gone. The hitchhiker was gone. Braylock was gone. The void was gone. There was only the road, and the van, and the dark. My hands were locked on the steering wheel. My foot was heavy on the accelerator. I didn't know how fast I was going. I didn't know how long I'd been driving. Hours? Days? Time had stopped making sense. My memories were almost entirely gone. I didn't know who I was. I only knew I had to keep driving. Then, out of the fog, a shape emerged. A bridge. It was made of dark, wet stone, arching over a black, rushing river. It looked ancient. The stones were slick with moss and age, crumbling at the edges. The stone bridge. I took my foot off the accelerator. The van coasted toward it. "Don't cross it." The words echoed in the hollow space of my mind. I pressed the brake. The van slowed. The tires hissed on the wet stone of the bridge's approach. I stopped 10 feet from the edge. The engine idled. The rain drummed on the roof. I sat there, staring at the bridge. Beyond it, the road continued, disappearing into the thick, impenetrable fog. If I crossed it, I would be safe. I would be back on the map. I would be back in the real world. But I would be the one standing at the roadside, waiting for the next courier, waiting for the next pair of headlights, waiting to warn them until I was too tired to run anymore. I looked at the fuel gauge. Empty. The needle was buried past the red line. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. The silence that followed was absolute. No engine tick, no rain, just a heavy, suffocating quiet. The dashboard lights flickered and died. The heater stopped. The cold rushed in, biting and sharp, seeping into my bones. I sat in the dark, my hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at the stone bridge. I didn't get out. I didn't try to push the van. I just sat there, waiting for the sun to come up, waiting for the fog to lift, waiting for the thing in the headlights to catch up. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours, years. Then the dashboard lit up. The radio crackled. The screen of the sat-nav flared to life, casting a harsh blue glow across my face, illuminating my hands on the wheel. The robotic voice filled the cab. But it didn't give me a route. It didn't tell me to turn left or turn right or continue for 7 miles. It just spoke 3 words: turn around.